wasn't place.
Sharon.
Sharon.
When Ashley speaks. I think she should pass them out to them. That speaks. Let me want to back.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm gonna need it for the,
Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the September 4th work session to order. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Before we get started, I want to introduce, we started a new program for junior council members. And we have Mercy Newell and Adam Smith at that end. They are junior councilmen, they are junior council persons. They go to the senior high and they're going to be involved. They showed some interest, so we're going to keep them doing some things here and we'll see how it goes. And we're going to amend the agenda tonight. We have an issue with Anderson Avenue with the neighbors here and the police chief. So if someone wants to come up and speak, the microphone's yours. Make sure it's on. Thank you. Just introduce yourself and your address.
Hello. Oh. So my name is Shana Crouch. I live at 556 Anderson Avenue, and I am speaking for our neighbors as their mouthpiece. I know my time is limited. You have in front of you a statement of what I'm going to read so you can follow along. So I'm just going to go ahead and get to it. On Anderson Avenue in Plum, we are a close-knit neighborhood. Some families have lived on Anderson Avenue since the plan was first developed in 1963. There are generations of family to this day who still live on the street. As a result, we have always looked out for and taken care of each other, and the recent events that have taken place in our beloved neighborhood are no exception. We are here tonight to make a formal complaint to the Borough Council regarding a rental home at 548 Anderson Avenue in Plum. We would like this property declared a nuisance rental and the tenants evicted forthwith. We know that the two adults living at this address are William Roberts and Tamika Moore, and it's difficult to know how many people actually live at this address because there are two dogs, several minors, along with several adults that come and go. As a matter of public record, we are aware that Mr. Roberts has the following court actions pending, and some of the charges include possession of a firearm prohibited and manufacture, delivery, or possession with intent to manufacture or deliver. We are also aware there is a possibility Mr. Roberts is driving a vehicle without a valid driver's license. There is a concern that local police are turning, quote, a blind eye to the possibility of this situation in order to avoid stirring the pot. The Plum Police have been called to this property multiple times every month since the current renters moved in 2+ years ago. The police have actually referred to this address as one of their, quote, regulars. However, one of the most serious problems happening now is the violence that has exploded. Not only did the minors who live in the house physically threaten another student on the bus at the end of the school year for the 6/2024, and then attack the mother of that child when she tried to protect her child. The first week of school this year, the same minor children threatened several children on the bus and physically attacked the mother after she tried to intervene, causing her bodily injury, breaking her nose, and creating some fractures in her face. The police took a statement from Ashley, the victim, but essentially told her she shouldn't have gone to speak to the parent of the child that threatened her son, implying it was her fault she was assaulted. Let's take a pause. Let's remember that it was Ashley and her son who were the victims in this whole situation. The last thing one wants to hear from the very people who are supposed to protect and serve is that, although it shouldn't have happened, it was mostly your fault that you were assaulted. If it hadn't been for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who live across the street, seeing the assault in progress and breaking it up, who knows how much more Ashley would have been injured. The teenager who assaulted Ashley, bruising her spine and leaving her with a bloodied face and a broken nose, was never even called to her front door to be spoken to by authorities. Perhaps if she had been, she wouldn't have been emboldened to attack a guidance counselor and a student at Plum High School a week later. After the assault, the same afternoon, Mr. Williams trespassed onto Mr. and Mrs. Smith's property, where arguments continued, resulting in Mr. Roberts making terroristic threats to blow up their house and kill them, and that we would see yellow tape around their house. The police were called again, and even though Mr. and Mrs. Smith were threatened, it was not taken seriously and nothing was done. Later that evening, Mr. Roberts, with purpose and intent, retrieved a gun from his car and brandished it in front of several neighbors, inciting fear and danger to the residents who own homes in this neighborhood. The police were called back to the scene, and regardless of there being several witnesses, the police did nothing about this threat because they said no one took a picture. The police should have investigated the situation, especially when threats were made earlier, and Mr. Roberts has a court hearing coming up with the very charge of having a firearm. Then Sunday morning, before Labor Day, the local police were again called to this property, this time for some sort of domestic dispute, waking people up at 8 a.m. in the morning. The saga doesn't end here. Because of breaking up the assault on Ashley, it would seem that Mr. and Mrs. Smith and their family are now being targeted by the renters in this house. One of the adults sat in his car late Saturday night after the assault, flashing his headlights high beams into the Smiths' house. The police were not called because everyone was asked to calm down and take it down a notch. Yet, the first thing police asked when it was brought up a few days later was, "Did you call the police?" Lastly, because I know my time is coming to an end, perhaps the second most serious thing, aside from Ashley's assault, where the mother of the teenager did nothing to stop her, is that the same mother, Ms. Moore, called Plum Police so her child could make false allegations against the son of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Not only are the allegations false, the Plum police officer who took the report from Ms. Moore did no investigation, did not speak to the son, and actually called the son to tell him a citation was filed against him. He then proceeded to tell Corey it was in his best interest not to visit his mother until after it goes to court. When Corey started to state his side and explain that he did nothing and has witnesses, Officer Scleeter told him, quote, "Save it for court." When Mr. and Mrs. Smith called the supervisors to their house that night regarding this outrageous allegation, they were informed that the citation was not yet filed and the officer should not have told Corey that he can't visit his mother, which is also the house he grew up in. And it was agreed that there should be further investigation the next day, and the officer would call Corey. Officer Scleeter did call Corey back and told him he would investigate, but regardless of the information, he was still going to file the citation. Tamika Moore, William Roberts, her family members and friends, and her minor children have caused undue stress on this entire neighborhood. And because of their bad behavior, they have caused physical and mental injury to its residents. We are being told not to come out of our homes when police are on our street. As homeowners and stakeholders in this community, we have a right to know what is happening in our neighborhood, and we have a right to come out of our homes and stand on our porches or our friends' porches. It is appalling that the local police are, quote, requesting that we stay shut up and isolated in our homes. These renters are dangerous. They have nothing to lose and are not invested in this community or the neighborhood. The amount of public resources being spent on one location for several years is costly and draws the resources away from other areas of the community on a regular basis. Action needs to be taken immediately before further physical and mental harm come to other neighborhood homeowners and children. We feel several Plum police officers are not taking us seriously, but we know the mayor and the chief of police will, and that the mayor has certain legal abilities to declare this a nuisance property and begin eviction procedures. We love our neighborhood, and we would love to feel safe again, to walk our dogs, and socialize with each other without this threat that we are currently feeling. Right now, we do not feel safe, and we do not feel free to enjoy our homes that we have worked so hard to own and maintain. Thank you for your time. I do know that Ashley, who is the victim, she's here. She also is requesting to make a statement regarding this assault.
Yeah, anyone else who wants to speak, I mean, we'd appreciate not doing the same thing, but anything anyone has to say, please come up, just state your name and address.
Forewarning, I am not a public speaker, so I am very awkward about it. My name is Ashley Giuliano. I live at 568 Anderson Avenue. I can't even get over it. This whole thing has just been a nightmare. Like, since May until now, you know, we call the cops. We try to get someone to take us seriously, and anytime that we call them, it's basically we feel like we're being laughed at. I called them the other day to let them know that the family that assaulted me had someone drive next to my house on the wrong side of the road. He didn't care. Staring at my house and park right next to it, waiting for them to come down and just laughing right in front of my house, like as if it's no big deal. Anything that we say, we don't get taken serious. Everything that we say is basically a laugh at. It's a joke. It's, what do you want us to do? It's not Pittsburgh. You know, they're not coming out with guns shooting you. There's worse kids out there. That shouldn't be how it goes. I had to find out today, actually, that I have charges against me for harassment and for disorderly conduct because I was defending children who were actually afraid to go home from the bus. They hid in someone else's home. That's not right. The fact that nobody is caring about this and taking this serious, because I just don't get it. Every single cop that we have talked to, the detective that we've talked to, they've all said the same thing. She's a minor. They can pretty much get away with murder because Schumann only has 16 beds. It's wrong. It is so wrong. Kids on my street, they ride their bikes everywhere. They walk everywhere. We bought a house on our street because this is the house that I grew up, the street that I grew up on. And the fact that kids are terrified to even walk to my dad's house, who's 7 doors down from me, that's so wrong. What I actually wrote, I'm probably repeating myself, but if you have children, you know how resilient they can be. You know how vulnerable they can be, especially when they're threatened. My 11-year-old son had to watch me get attacked. I was strangled, and I was beaten over and over with her mother a foot away from me, and her 20-year-old boyfriend a foot away from me. The fact that I had my neighbors, Ann and Rick, come out and tell them to stop and they threatened to kill them? Why is this not being taken serious? The only reason why she got off of me and stopped strangling me and beating me was due to the fact that they showed they were on the phone with 911. It's not right. I don't care how many times I have to tell you that. It is not right. This shouldn't be happening. I've contacted the rental company back in May, letting them know that their tenant assaulted a mother and a child off of the bus. They said it's criminal charges. Talk to a police. They're still living there today. So finally, unfortunately, it happened that I was on their property trying to talk to the mother. And yeah, I admit to the cops that I did yell because after hearing her say, everyone's fine, everyone's friends, there's no issues here. No, I'm not delusional, and I'm not gonna live in a delusional world where it just doesn't matter. You can't control your daughter. The school can't control them. I called the school the following Monday and let them know that she is a threat, and it's not a matter of if she's going to attack, it's when. There's video proof. And I have 2 of the videos of her trying to charge after a boy, and he didn't hit back at all. But the guidance counselor went to take the boy away, and she gets punched in the back of the head. Why are violent people able to get away with everything? The fact that the charges I got against me are ridiculous. They turned it into a race war, saying that I use racial slurs. I didn't even get a word out with the daughter. I have multiple fractures in my face. I have a possible fractured tailbone. My entire lip has been gashed open. I've had to take lidocaine on my lip to even be able to talk. Why? And every time that we talk and we try to call a cop, why? Why do we feel like we're just a nuisance to them and that no one takes us serious? The fact that my 11-year-old had to watch this and scream and cry from the side, I can't let that go and just think that this is nothing. He didn't want to leave the house that whole weekend. I couldn't get him to go to school on Monday. He's like, you have to talk to everybody. You have to talk to the bus company. You have to talk to the school. You have to make sure I'm safe. School kept telling me that it didn't happen on school property and they can't do anything. Fine. It happened on school property now. I tried talking to the bus garage. Same thing. He was like, it didn't happen there, so what do you want me to do? I asked him about moving a bus stop and adding an extra bus stop into the middle of the road for kids' safety, because several children have to walk past their home to even go home. He said that's illegal. I couldn't get him to actually acknowledge me the first day that I tried getting a hold of him. I left voicemails, I left emails. So I finally tagged him in an email with the vice principal and the principal, and he had the nerve to tell me that he never got my messages. So I screenshotted everything that I've sent to him. I screenshotted the day I got a hold of him, the email, and I said, if this is me calling your bluff, then let me know. I know that this is a repeat thing from what she's saying, but this is so wrong. And the fact that we have to wait however many weeks for even someone to do something about maybe going to an eviction court. But here's the thing, she appealed the first eviction in the summertime. So what's to stop this? What's to stop people from constantly being able to get away with the system, and it doesn't affect them, but it affects everybody else? An entire street is terrified of one house. I don't know what else to say, what else to do. The fact that I got a call today to let me know that, not even from someone here in Plum, but I got a heads up from a random lawyer who got my name and number and asked if I want to use him as a lawyer. It's amazing. She wouldn't talk to a police officer for 2 whole weeks. They wouldn't come out for a statement. Nothing. They asked in good faith, though, can you please bring your daughter to the police station so we can get a statement of what happened? I said, you really think criminals are going to turn themselves in on good faith? Because they don't. So yesterday I got charges filed against me for this. So now it's my reputation. Say I go for another job somewhere and they have to look at this and they see that I have 2 harassment charges and disorderly conduct, and then when you look at the underlying complaint of it, it's because of race. That has nothing to do with this. I don't care what color you are, what nationality you are, what anything you are. It depends if you are a good person or not. And the fact that I had to support kids that aren't even mine to make sure that they were okay, that's how it should be. But the fact that that whole situation is what led us to this now is awful. The cops get called there all the time. The past couple times, they've actually called it on themselves, which is even amazing on that. So I don't know if this meeting will do anything, but I'm trying, and I'm hoping, just for our kids. So, thank you.
Sure can.
My name's Rich Smith. I live at 549 Anderson Avenue, right across the street from the problem household. I want to make it short. I agree with everything that everybody said. It's a really good description of the situation. I'm almost 70 years old. My wife is 66, and I've lived in Plum Boro my whole life, and I've never been afraid to walk out of my house, ever. I leave the house and leave the doors open, front and back. Go to the store, come back, and the doors are open. But I can't do that now, because we honestly live in fear of this family across the street. I'm probably the only one that saw this altercation happen between the child and Ashley. I was sitting in my living room looking at the TV and right out the window, and saw that girl leave that porch and hit her and knock her on the ground with her body, and then wrestle her on the ground. And we started to the front door and went out and immediately were yelling, "Stop it, stop it." My wife says she's gonna call the police, and the girl paused for a second as I got closer to the street, and she starts out on the street to come at me. And she said, "F you, I'll kill you." So that was the first threat we had. Luckily, the one young man across the street, supposed to be her boyfriend, grabbed her by the arm and pulled her back. Or she'd have got at me that day, undoubtedly. It was just, I couldn't believe it. Was one of those things where it's happening and you're going, this isn't real. I can't believe this. The girl was out of control. But they stopped it, went back on their property, and they pulled the girl back into the house. And then when the police showed up, they went down to Ashley's house. When everything moved up the street towards us, they were outside across the street yelling, and I come out, it was like, I can't believe this is continuing. The lady across the street in that house would not shut up. So I walk outside and say, just go back in your house. Go in your house. If she goes in the house, it's over. And we're getting all kinds of crap coming at us. And like I said, they fear nothing. And they're a one family crime wave if you look at each of their rap sheets. And knowing that and seeing these actions, this guy brandishes a gun later in the back and forth going on in the street. Policeman asked me, how do we know it's a gun? Do you know it's real? Does it work? Well, the impression of a gun in a heated argument like that is gonna invoke fear in the person that sees that. If it looks like a duck, come on. So we get it from the policeman. How do you know if it's real? Does it work? It's like, come on. I used to manage Homewood South. I'm in property management. So he brings up he's gonna bring his Homewood boys over to our street and straighten this whole thing out. I've heard crap like that for 40 years in property management, so I'm not real shook up about it. But just knowing that he has access to that kind of, that's just gonna put more fear in you. So that's why I'm sitting there and I think, should I load my gun every night before I go to sleep? I don't know what's gonna happen. They have struck real fear in my wife and I told the policeman that. During the altercation, he came out onto the street, the fellow from that address. 2 policemen went down to stop him from coming towards my wife, who was on the street too, with a couple other people. He was threatening them, my wife and the other people, and they started to move down the street, and the officers came like this to stop him. He's yelling these threats to my wife and I'm standing by the person filming this. I'm gonna blow your house up. There's gonna be crime tape around your house. I got a 45, and it just, okay, that goes on. The police stop him. Then he marches across the street, bold as hell, past the policeman, into my front yard, and by that time, I'm on my porch, and he walks right up to the porch, and he's gonna proceed to try to intimidate me standing on my porch. And he's a big man. If he got a hold of any one of us, we're in trouble. So as he's mumbling, I'm telling him a few choice words and like, who the heck do you think you are marching over here? And as he turns his head to walk away, he looks at me, he says, I'm gonna shoot you both. And it starts away. And then I told him, and I'm not gonna kid about it, I told him, I'll bury you. You wanna go that direction? I'll bury. It's a reply to that series of threats. And he just threatened me right in front of me that he's gonna shoot my wife and I. Now, the policeman that stopped him, as he was yelling those initial threats to us, there were 2 Plum policemen standing there. And he's yelling the threats over them. My son drives down the road past her the other day, the girl from across the street, and he gets this call that was discussed from Officer Schlater that he's filing a citation against him on the word of a 15-year-old girl. But I can't get 2 police officers who stood right on the street in front of this grown man threatening us to file any kind of citation or anything against this man standing on the street threatening people across the street. 2 elderly people, it's like, what the hell am I gonna do to him? He knows he's in control. He knows he's intimidating us. But I'm just at the point where, hey, I resent this. It's just stop it. And I had even spoken to, at his request, and I love the guy, the lieutenant over at the police department. My wife and I went over and talked to him, and he said, hey, why don't we just all calm down, take a step back? And we agreed. Before we even went over to talk to him, I just want this to stop. Those people lived over there for over a year. We never had a problem with them until everything started, and then it lands in our front yard. And that's when it drifted over to us. Now I'm living in a house, and I feel afraid to walk outside and get the mail. So we try to do everything in the backyard. And it shouldn't be like that. It never was, and I want it to go back that way. So I'm just asking for help. The lieutenant over at the police department has been wonderful, and I'm gonna go back and talk to him again and try to straighten this out. But my question is, my son gets a citation or is threatened with a citation, and we have the message that he left on the telephone about, I'm sending you this citation. I've heard it. And he gets that message on the word of a 15-year-old girl who, if that had gone through, would be running our Plum Police Department, because she could see that she could accuse anybody of anything she wanted to, and the cops are going to jump on that and tell somebody they're going to file a citation. But I get threatened with 2 policemen standing there, and nobody gets a citation. This bozo across the street is running around free and clear, and it just puzzles me. If we don't have a nuisance rental ordinance in Plum Boro, we should adopt one. This is one of those corporations that come in and buy houses and rent them if they had done background checks on any one of the people in that house. I've been doing that for 40 years. If you'd have seen one of those background checks, you'd say, no, not this family. But that's over there vacant for a long time, and they took anybody that waved some money in front of them and put them in, and this is what we ended up with. Now they're part of our life, and it's with all that entails. But we're just asking for a little bit of help. If we don't have that ordinance on the books now, I'm asking to please make one. One of my properties that I manage now is in Braddock Borough. They have an addendum to the lease that says if you're determined to be a nuisance rental and you fall into any of these categories here, you can be evicted just for that, not even anything that says in the lease, just for the addendum that you have to sign. Every landlord has to sign that in Braddock Borough. I have that signed all the time. I've never had to use it, but it's sure handy to have it there. But that's all I want to say. I don't want to tie anything up anymore, but I agree with everything that the previous speakers said, and it's just a darn shame that we're just lucky enough to have these people move in and end up having to live like this. I'm semi-retired. This was not part of my plan, and we just need help. We need you guys to help, the police department to help, and just, please. So thank you.
Anyone else want to speak?
I'll be very brief. My name's Tony Giuliano, 537 Anderson Avenue. Ashley is my daughter. The day that this happened, the police were there, and we asked, are you going to go down and talk to the girl? And he says, no. We tried. They won't let us talk to the girl. The girl committed a crime, and nothing happened. Now, a week later, she beats the heck out of a kid and a guidance counselor. How many people have to get hurt before something is done? They owe $6,000 behind in Section 8 money. Rent-A-Center is there 3 to 4 times a week knocking on their door to get all their stuff back. His stickers on his car were expired in 2022. And I called it in, and that morning, and 33 minutes later, his car comes back with new stickers on it. I was a service manager for Chrysler for over 30 years. If I could inspect an older car in 33 minutes, then that's pretty good. Okay, with Ann and Rick, they got videos of the guy in the yard. I was right next to Ann when the guy came over there threatening to kill him and put murder tape on there and bring his Homewood people up there with him. I'm 65 years old. I gotta watch my grandkids shake when they go out. I have an in-ground pool that's open to the neighbors. I don't even lock my doors. And like Rick said, we never had any problem with these people for the first year they were there. I don't know what transpired, what started it or whatever. We're a quiet neighborhood. Not anymore. They were, the day that she got expelled from school for beating those 2 people up, they were on the porch breakdancing. There's no answer for this. And finally, a week and a half later, they decide to talk to the police and say, oh, well, there was racial slurs. The girl's almost 300 pounds. Do you think my daughter's gonna take the first punch? Especially in front of my son, my grandson. No, that's not gonna happen. It's just, like I said, we have that on video with the guy driving on the opposite side of the road at 1 mile an hour, staring, and then the guy, the boyfriend comes down and just starts laughing with him right in front of her house. I'm her dad. I feel like I'm letting her down because I want to do something, but like Mr. DeMario, Officer DeMario said, they have nothing to lose, you have everything to lose. And he's right. But we're losing so much. We're losing in the tight neighborhood that we had, and it's not right. It's just not right. So that's all I have to say.
Anyone else wish to address? God, I was going to ask Bruce to say something. Go ahead.
I have
Okay.
two items here I need to address, I need to correct on this paper you gave us. One, Mr. Roberts does have a valid driver's license. 2, as mayor, I do not have the authority to just put somebody out of their house. I don't have that, do I?
Absolutely
I have no authority to do that, so that's also, I don't want to say, it's wrong, you know, so I want to correct that so that there's no misunderstanding moving forward. And somebody saying the mayor never did anything about it, I do not have the authority to do that. That's all I have
So
to
what
say.
do you have the authority to do? I'm just curious.
We don't, go ahead, I'll let you answer that one.
You understand, this is the borough government here. We pave roads, we have a police force, we have a water company. We take care of the various things that go on in the municipality. We don't get into criminal actions. That's for the district judge to take care of, the district attorney, and the police department. We have a whole staff of people there. We can't, these representatives don't have the authority or power to go out and arrest people. We don't, we're a kind of, I want to call it civil in nature, not criminal in nature. Your complaints sound in criminality. It certainly, I think somebody mentioned that there was an attorney that might want to get involved. I would certainly avail myself of that to have a representative when you go before the district judge. Now, you're saying, well, now I'm gonna have to spend money. I can't help that. We're not in this business of taking care of criminality. Sure, I think everybody here agrees with every word you've said. They sympathize. They have feelings about what goes on. I'm sure they're sitting here saying, boy, I wouldn't want that in my neighborhood. And I'm gonna say, I wouldn't want that in my neighborhood. It sounds like these people are just running kind of roughshod. Lanny's here tonight for a reason, I guess, and maybe he can give some insight as to what's going on criminally, if anything. It sounds like they're behind in their rent, that ultimately the mortgage, or the landlord's gonna probably end up taking them to the magistrate and getting them removed. That's what should happen. You don't have jurisdiction to do that, only the landlord does. They own the property. You don't have the right to come in and say to somebody, I don't like how you're acting in that house, albeit it's terrible. I want you to be removed. You don't have those kinds of powers. Only the landlord does, the owner of the property. But you certainly have all your rights as a citizen, that if crimes are being committed, individuals should be arrested, bonds should be posted, hearings should be had. And I would suggest that's where you should really place your emphasis. I don't want to go on. I hope you understand the position we're in, albeit it's not a good one. No one likes this. Well, I wish we had a big sword and we could go out and just cut their heads all off, but we can't. And that's unfortunate.
Maybe there could be a group that they could talk about this with the police and let's come up with something. They have this on video,
Sure.
the guy threatening them.
Sure.
I'm gonna ask
And
Lanny,
I support the police, I donate all the time,
Okay.
everything else, just like all of us. But
Is he
I
here to
did
talk?
call and ask for you, and I got a call from another officer said that I was told by the police chief
Those
to
police
call
will
you.
get arrested.
And I
so, hold on, we're not gonna go back and forth with this. If you wanna speak, come up to the podium, but we have the, please, hold on.
Wait,
We have the police chief here tonight. I asked him to be here through the mayor to give you some type of response, okay? So the question that I want to ask, is there an ordinance that we can enact as a council that it would be a nuisance ordinance to remove people from a home?
No,
So
there's no such thing.
So there's no
Whether he
legal,
thinks there is or isn't.
there is, okay. So,
I mean, there's nuisance ordinances, but you can't say, okay, I don't like the way you're acting, and be right about it, and then have them kicked out of their house. It just doesn't work like
Okay.
that. It's America.
Chief, if you could come up to the podium and sort of give where the police department stands on this, please?
As far as the allegations of the different crimes that have been committed, I can't make any public comment. These people have been charged accordingly and appropriately. You made a comment that this is, you were charged for racial comments. You are not. You were not charged with ethnic intimidation.
Did you read the complaint though?
I did read the complaint.
And that they said that I swung first and that I was saying racial slurs in front of them when I couldn't even get a word out.
I wasn't there.
Okay, we're not gonna do
I'm
is-
not gonna debate
Lanny,
your court case here, ma'am.
Don't go back and forth with this, Lanny. Just
The
tell them
bottom
what you.
line is, I will meet with everyone here individually. This is a public forum. These are criminal charges. You brought your criminal charges to a public forum. I did not. It's not the appropriate time or place to discuss this. So if you would like to meet with me, we'll set up a meeting next week sometime. I know Sergeant or Lieutenant Zabinski has been in touch with some of you. Sergeant DeMary has been in touch with some of you and has explained the whole situation. And I believe, where's the other gentleman?
He's out in the hall.
He's out in the hallway. That situation has already been resolved about the citation for driving by that individual.
Oh, right.
So it's been taken care of, but you people failed to set the record straight.
Well, we just found out before we came here.
But you did not say that.
I didn't get up right.
Okay, but that wasn't pointed out. The case was investigated. It was found to be unfounded,
Right,
and your son did not receive a citation, correct?
right.
Okay.
Because there was witnesses and it was investigated, but they only investigated it after we talked to two of the sergeants that came to our house.
The investigation was not complete. This was a newer officer,
Okay, well, he didn't say that on his
Okay.
recording when he left the message.
but
He said he was going to file it.
whatever was done
Yeah,
was undone, correct?
right,
Was, okay.
right.
So excuse me, just one question. So this is a public forum, and I understand that.
Mhm.
So what would your suggestion be for the neighborhood at this point in time?
Well, let me see if I can't help here a little bit. We're in the midst of having a public meeting on roads and garbage and sewers and all those other things. If you want to meet with Lanny or his representatives,
Okay.
do that. My suggestion, you'll get much more done there.
Okay.
I would suggest also that you involve yourself with the district judge. And you can do that with your lawyer. Because he's going to be the one that can bring the hammer down on some of these issues.
Before it's too late.
Could I ask that, can you increase patrols?
We've already done that, and we can continue to do that.
Okay, so we'll do what the police department can do what they want to do. And do you, I know everyone's here for this individual thing. Do you want to go out into we can carry on the meeting, that way it's not public, and you can discuss with him and get meetings or conversations set up with him through the police department?
Yes, please.
I don't want to throw Lanny.
Well, I'm not throwing him under the
No,
bus,
I'm fine.
but he's here, and I'm figuring, they have some questions that need to be answered,
You understand?
and this isn't the forum for them to be addressing some of these issues
The remedy-
on public, because it's on TV.
If they go out there, it's a
That-
private conversation. It's a private conversation.
That's where I'm going.
Okay.
That's where I'm
And
going.
the remedy here is not with this body, but with the district judge and the police. That's where you're gonna find relief, if there's gonna be any.
So,
It can't be a he said, she said. You've gotta have your proof, you have your photographs, you have your cameras, and taking pictures and have that stuff. And when you go to the district, go to the police, show it to them, and say, you can swear out a private criminal complaint too. You can go to the district attorney, go to the magistrate's office and take out a private criminal complaint against the defendants. And if you've got proof, you don't need the police. You can do it yourself. And again, if you've got the assistance of an attorney, he would probably know about that. That's pretty common. And that's where you're gonna, if there's gonna be any relief. Understand something. I worked in a district attorney's office a long time ago. This is nothing new for me to hear. My suggestion to you, though, is to go to the magistrate, take out a private criminal complaint, meet with the police, and that's the best you're gonna get. And you wanna keep it on the good side of the law, not the bad. Don't take out your gun and shoot the guy. I mean, that doesn't not answer anything. My suggestion to you, get involved with the magistrate, get involved with the police, meet and do what you have to do.
so what I would recommend, Lanny, if you don't mind,
I'm here.
go out, take it privately. Let me tell you, I can speak for everybody sitting here. What you've brought to us is not falling on deaf ears, okay? I was made aware of this the other day. Harry was already aware of it. He took it, he's had a several-hour meeting with the police department, with Lanny and the other officers. So from our standpoint, we understand what you're saying, but I don't think that you want to air anything else in a public forum. If you'd like to go outside into the lobby, you're off camera, you're out of the public, and you can maybe give him some more information, or he can give you some more information. Okay?
It's fine by me.
Thank you, we appreciate your time.
Okay,
Do we need to
thank
replay
you.
the pictures? Photographs?
Yeah, they're sitting right here.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming. And several of you have my phone number. I've talked to you. If you feel you need to call me again, don't hesitate. Okay? Okay, we're going to move into the regular agenda now. Mr. Sabosley, if you would.
Thank you. So we're going to start our regular agenda meeting here, as we always do. So we have our welcome to our new junior council people. Staff has met with Mercy and Adam over the last few months a few times, and we're trying to ease them into this. We have actually a long agenda, about 17 items. So under planning and economic development, we have a few things. I'm going to call up to the microphone. DJ Housley is one of our new assistant managers. He's going to talk about some of these items. But the first one is we've received an application for Pine Court, private street here in Plum Boro, for a sewage planning module. So DJ, if you want to give us the details of that. And for our junior council people, why are sewage planning modules needed?
Okay. On a general level, sewage planning modules are how the state tracks adding sewage flow to existing sanitary sewer systems. And it's also a way, one of these that's on here tonight is an on-lot sewage treatment facility. And it basically just makes sure everybody's following the rules, not dumping raw sewage, say, into a stream or like in this case, doing illegal taps to public sewer. So the first one is the Pine Court number 4 sewage planning module. It's essentially 2 duplex units on Pine Court. This project came to you guys in 2019 and received approval. In order for them to construct the buildings, tie into the sewer, staff recommends council approve and adopt the Pine Court number 4 sewage planning module resolution.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
Very good. So number 2 is Gamma Sports Sewage Planning Module. So this is very similar to the first request. However, the Gamma Sports Sewage Planning Module, this comes from a previous land development, DJ?
Yes, the Gamma Sports came in June of 2024, received conditional approval. The planning module process was one of the conditions that was applied to that application when they came through. So again, they're just following up on that so that they can then continue with building the building and again tying into the sanitary sewer system that's through the project there.
And the one thing that sets this application apart is that they are within the Alcosan drainage area, so DEP has a special eye on this sewage flow.
Yeah, that's true. And then I should have also mentioned that part of the module process, there's several tiers, and because we're in Allegheny County, some of the other counties don't require, but Allegheny County Health Department also is one of the people that reviews this. And it's, again, just levels to make sure people are tying in where they're supposed to be. It also lets the treatment plants downstream, if it's flowing to a treatment plant, to make sure they have enough capacity for the sewage flow that would get to them.
So that the new council people here understand, you use the term DEP. That's the Department of Environmental Protection. That's a state-run organization that oversees sewage disposal, and we have to abide by their rules.
Okay, any questions, comments, discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
Item number 3, for council that rarely has sewage planning modules, we have our third of the night at 4609 Sardis Road. So this is a little different. This is DJ, if you want to talk about how this differs from the other two and what the approval is here.
Sure. This piece of property has an existing house with a failing on-lot private sewage system. That could be septic tank, leach field, something along those lines, where there's no public sewer for them to tie into. In this case, they're doing something that's abbreviated as OLDS. It's an on-lot sewage disposal system. Basically, it'll be a micro treatment facility just for this one structure, and then it'll discharge on the low end of the property and flow downstream from there. Same thing, it's gone through county health, it'll go through DEP, and everything's designed in accordance with their restrictions, and then it also will get inspected again in the future, and they'll have to continue compliance to make sure that the treatment facility they're installing is up to snuff, so to speak. So again, we're recommending council approve and adopt this sewage planning module for this project as well.
Questions, discussion?
One question.
Sure.
It says here that the adjoining neighbors had to be told, and I guess, do they have to agree with it or sign off on it?
I think it's just a DEP notification issue that they're required to notify, the neighbors within X number of feet from the property.
I got a question too. So how common are these things, sewage planning models? I agree with Dave, I don't see them very often. How many of these are floating around Plums?
As far as sewage planning modules, every land development that gets done, they have to go through this process.
So I think he's asking specifically about the snow flow treatment. Yeah.
The OLDS?
Yeah.
Okay, they're fairly common. I don't have a number, but even prepping for tonight's meeting, they're fairly common in Plum. They're usually in more agricultural areas where there's no trunk line sewer run to service the general service area.
So the last one I actually remember is on Sardis Road. Maybe, I think 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
There are several in Plum Boro right now. They've been approved over the years. They come about maybe one every couple of years, so it's not really a common thing. But there are certain regulations procedures they have to go through to get it approved, and then there's some inspections that have to go on to get it up and running.
And I think in this case, due to the slope of the property, traditional on-lot sewage would continue to fail.
Yeah, and the size of the property, it's, I believe, roughly a half an acre piece of property. They weren't getting good perk tests according to the reports that were given. And all those criteria lead up to, you basically can try and do a holding tank and have it honey dipped, or you do something like this. And I think this is the preferred method. So.
Any further discussion or questions?
Does Plum Boro, Allegheny County allow holding tanks for residents?
I don't believe so, not for residential.
No, they don't. Not unless there's already plans to extend it, so we're there. They might approve one for 3 months or 6 months or something like that. Okay. Generally not.
Any furthers? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
Next item on the agenda, our next two items deal with the Midas well. So you can see up on your screen here some drawings that were submitted here. So the Midas well is a fracking well located basically at the intersection of Kerr Road and Coxcomb Hill Road. Approved by council in 2017-2018. The well has continued to operate over the years. They've come back to Plum Boro over the summer requesting a land development application, and DJ is going to talk to you about that and where that's been. I'll also note that they have been to the zoning hearing board requesting for this project a use by special exception. That request was approved by the zoning hearing board, which allows us to come before you tonight with these requests. So DJ, if you want to talk about it, I don't know in which order you want to do it, just a little bit about the land development and what the building waiver is related to. And you can see on your screen the layout of the property. And Jess, you can also toggle to the next drawing, which shows the building elevations that are being proposed.
So the building that they're proposing is to be located on the existing well pad. On the first sheet, it was the darker rectangular shape near the bottom right of the pad. The dimensions are roughly 50 foot 6 inch by 42 foot 0 inches. It'll just be a steel building like you see there. That'll house the compressor equipment, things like that. As part of the project, they're also going to do a sound wall. The request for the waiver goes back to the landscape buffer yard requirements. This site is essentially in the middle of the woods. I believe a similar waiver would have been granted during the well pad approval process because the same type of buffer would have been required. And it's one of those ones that why cut down all these nice, healthy, thick trees to plant baby trees that you're going to take a long time to grow. That's really it. Both of these items were recommended by the Planning Commission and the staff as well for you to consider.
So they're requesting a compressor station. This is a compressor station. What does the compressor station do?
That's a little more technical than me, but basically it has to do with them, I understand, compressing the gas.
So according to their narrative, it says, it extends the life of that well pad, and it allows them to transport this gas, from one point to another. So as DJ said, they've been through Planning Commission. Planning Commission has recommended approval, and they have two separate requests before council to go on the agenda. One is the actual land development application, and the second is the requested building waiver.
Okay, any discussion, comments, questions? Okay, so both things will be put on the agenda.
Very good. Next item is the agricultural security area finalization. So back in the spring, let me back up a little bit. 2 or 3 years ago, Plum Boro received its first application ever for an agricultural security area. So it would be tough for me to explain to our new council people what that is. I'd be happy to give you the 40 or 50 page manual that the state releases that explains it, but basically these are areas that are being farmed and they're seeking certain protections from nuisance ordinances and things like that. So back a few years ago, we had our original agricultural security area approved by council, which had, I think 25 to 30 properties. In the last year or so, we had a request for amendment number 1. There were some additional properties. The state sets forth guidelines on how these things are to be approved. There's a 180-day process that we follow to make sure these things are addressed the right way. So back in the spring, we had a request for some additional parcels to be added. We held a public hearing, council did. I think there was little to no comment. And as part of the process, council has appointed an agricultural security committee, and they did meet last week, and they are recommending that the applications be moved forward to council for a vote for approval and to be added to the existing security area.
Questions, comments? Questions, comments? Okay, that'll be agenda item.
Next item on the agenda is Oakmont Water Authority Consolidation Plan. So for our new council people, we are served, our water and sewer needs are served by the Plum Boro Municipal Authority for most of Plum Boro. There's a large section of Plum Boro, including the east, what we call the East Oakmont section of Plum Boro, over near Oakmont Country Club, Coxcomb Hill, the Sheets, that is served by the Oakmont Water and Sewer Authority. So they do own property on Coxcomb Hill near Soma's, and they have submitted an application, and I think you see the application up here on the TV, for a consolidation plan. So a consolidation plan is just a request, usually to unite 2 parcels together, and usually there's an end game to that. And here we think there may be a land development coming, but DJ, tell me if I missed anything there. I think the motion before council simply is to accept the application as complete.
This month it'll be accepted, and you guys would vote next month. There is a land development application, of course, go to the Planning Commission first, and so you guys will see that. I believe it might be November. I have to check the submission timeline, but they'll hear that before it comes back to you guys related to this property.
So the land development, per our procedures, would go to Planning Commission before it comes back to council?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, questions or comments, discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
Last item under planning and economic development, and it is a long list tonight, Oakmont Country Club cooperation agreement. So for our new council people, Oakmont Country Club, located in Plum Boro, not in Oakmont, applied for a grant through the state. It's a redevelopment capital assistance type grant. And we, the borough, at the request of Oakmont Country Club, are the applicant for that. They were not an eligible applicant, but they are an eligible sub-applicant for this. As part of this process, Plum Boro has entered into a contract, an agreement with the state about how this grant will be administered and how things move forward. As part of that agreement, and I see just Dave D'Alessandro is here tonight. He's a consultant for Oakmont Country Club. As part of that agreement, Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there were 16 or 17 special conditions issued, and as one of those, there has to be a cooperation agreement between Plum Boro and Oakmont Country Club. That agreement has been forwarded to the borough solicitor for review. There was one red line change that I think, Bruce, you had no problems with, and you have recommended that this come back to council for a vote.
Okay, any discussion, questions? Okay, that'll be an agenda item also.
Very good. Moving on to personnel and management, I'm going to call up to the microphone Jim Driano. Jim was recently promoted as one of our 2 assistant managers. And Jim oversees HR and as one of his main areas. But he's here to talk to you. You know, every year we deal with an MMO, which is a minimum municipal obligation. So the borough has, in this case, pension plans that need funded. And you know, in order to keep those pension plans sound, there have to be minimum contributions from the municipality to those plans. So every year we go through a process called the MMO, and by law the state says that we have to introduce the MMO to council no later than the last day of September. So we're well within our date range here, but Jim, if you want to talk about the 2025 employee contribution resolution, and maybe while you're at the microphone under finance, which is related, the 2025 MMO resolution.
Sure. So the 2025 employee contribution resolution is rather simple in nature. For the last 20, 30 years, possibly even longer, well, let me say that the police pension funding comes from a number of sources. One of those sources being a contribution or deduction from officers' paychecks that goes straight to the pension fund. So that has been 5% for at least 20, 30 years and hasn't changed. But it was recommended by our actuary as he prepared our 2025 MMO that the borough adopt a resolution or an ordinance stating that the mandatory contribution for fiscal year 2025 is in fact 5%. Now, it does say that in the original police pension ordinance that I think was adopted in 2008. This resolution is sort of just reiterating that fact and putting the 2025 year to it.
Okay, any discussion, questions? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
And then jumping down to the finance 2025 MMO resolution, as Dave pretty much explained it all, but just to kind of give it a little bit more context, every year by law this has to be adopted by September 30th. To repeat, Dave, it's the minimum municipal obligation, whereas, as I stated before, the police pension plan is funded from a number of sources, one being the aforementioned contributions from officers' paychecks, 2, state aid, and 3, this MMO is the number that the borough, or any borough for that matter, or township, is required by law to put into the police pension plan every year. And that number is derived from an actuarial study. And the actuary provides us with the evaluation every year, and we move forward with that. So it's not much different from 2024. In total, it's the MMO for 2024 is 1.5 million, and 2025 1.5 million. The numbers are relatively close, so really no change.
Questions or comments on the 2025 MMO resolution? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
So Jim, do you want to go over that number again? Not 1.5 million. 1.1?
So I pulled the numbers from
Okay, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. My fault.
the agenda packet.
Okay. Okay, so the recommendation, we're gonna take the low number budget, we're gonna take the low number, and then through the budget process, see what we can do to close the gap on the higher number.
Right, so the borough actuary suggested one of two numbers for the MMO. One being the borough is going to take the lower number and just budget the higher number. The difference is minimal. It's $130,000, and that comes from some expiring amortization that he's laid out for us. So basically, it's in short, pay me now, pay me later. So we're going to take the lower number and budget.
And my fault, I wasn't looking at the complete picture. Jim is absolutely right. It is
Okay,
1.5.
good.
Yes.
Thank you.
My fault.
Yeah, that'd be tough to say.
Well, when you're wrong, you're wrong.
For some people,
We can put that on the agenda.
so no questions or comments on that? That's an agenda item.
Okay, sort of going back a little bit here to public safety. It's under public safety because these deal with police cars. So for our new council people, any asset that the borough has, the borough code, the Pennsylvania has a code for boroughs. I think we talked about that in one of our meetings. There's a borough code, there's a first-class township, second-class township code. So the borough code talks about how council disposes of their assets. Every year we bring before council, usually in January or February, a list of items that we wish to dispose of that are no longer of any use to us and that we believe have some value that we can sell to other municipalities, private individuals. But what happens every year is that as the year goes along, we find out there are additional things that need to be added. In this case, over the last few years, we've traditionally traded our police cars in when we buy new police cars. This year, the number presented for the trade was, in our opinion, and I don't have the number in front of me, was lower than normal. So the police chief is recommending that council add 3 police vehicles to the asset disposition list, and then they be sold like any other asset we have. We use a company called Gov Deals, so it's an online auction. Anyone is able to make a bid and purchase those. We've sold trucks, Peterbilt trucks, other trucks through the site, and been very successful in getting the borough the money that we believe is still the value that's left in those items. So tonight's request is simply to add this to next week's agenda, and the vote would be to add it to the disposition list for sale.
Questions or comments? Okay, that'll be an agenda item. Parks and Recreation, we have a request from Gamma Sports. They appear on our agenda for the second time for a special use permit. This is probably the 3rd or 4th year in a row we've received this request. So a special use permit is a request from a resident, a business to use our properties. And in this case, Gamma Sports holds a baseball tournament. They request to use our fields at Plum Creek in October to hold an event for baseball and softball.
They've submitted the application. According to Public Works, they've submitted their their needed insurance information. As far as garbage is concerned, this outfit will pay for any additional garbage dumpsters beyond what we normally provide at the fields. And I think it's been, over the last few years, a successful event. So staff is recommending that after receiving the complete application, this be moved forward to a vote next week.
Questions, comments, discussion? Okay, it'll be an agenda item. Okay, moving along down into finance, we already covered the 2025 MMO resolution. Number 13, actuary service agreement. So we've been using an actuary, the Phoenix Benefits Group, for the last number of years. It's been discovered that we don't have a formal agreement in place for them. And my preference is that council approve a formal agreement that reflects the terms and conditions that we have with the Phoenix Benefits Group. So all I'm asking, and we have a copy of this proposed agreement in your packet, is to formalize the services that we've been receiving in the past and will continue unchanged in the future, but just formalizes our relationship with this group. Comments, questions, discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item. Number 14, Act 20 Keystone Collections Resolution. So if you remember at last, so for our new council people, at last month's meeting, council talked about how we bill our sewage, our garbage bill and our stormwater bill. Right now, those bills are sent out by our municipal authority. Council is looking at changing who sends those bills out, just as a matter of efficiency in how things get done. So last month, council approved 2 resolutions related to that. And this is a 3rd resolution, and this resolution is related to the collection of delinquent items. So as part of our agreement, Keystone would be collecting delinquent garbage fees, delinquent stormwater fees, and delinquent real estate fees. And this Act 529 resolution allows Keystone as our agent to charge the people who they're going after for delinquent charges to pay the fees related, the attorney's fees, the filing fees, and the residents of the borough are not paying those costs. So all this does is it formalizes and allows Keystone to act as our agent on our behalf for the collection of these delinquent items. Okay, questions, comments, discussion?
I just have a general question. How often will Keystone report back to us with their collections, what they've collected?
So right now, we use Keystone for the collection of our earned income tax. That's the only reference base I have. Talking with Mike Whittico, the important thing is that we receive payments in a timely manner. So Keystone's not holding the money, they send it to us. We can earn interest on the money. There's cash flow that happens. I'd have to look at the agreement, but we have not identified it as a problem in the collection of EIT, which is a whole lot more than we'll be collecting, through a stormwater fee. But the finance department would handle that, and to date, they've not identified any issues dealing with Keystone. But I can find the answer for you to see if the agreement says that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item. Okay. Item number 15, Longwood Oakmont pilot agreement update. So if you remember back in the winter into spring, council entered into an agreement with Longwood for a payment in lieu of taxes. Now, I'm not supposed to call it that, but just for simplicity, we are. For our new council people, Longwood at Oakmont is located over in East Oakmont off of Coxcomb Hill, senior living facility. Over the years, the borough has entered into agreements with them for a payment in lieu of taxes. They could make the argument that they are tax-free, but recognizing that they receive public services, fire, ambulance, police,
planning. They have an agreement with us to pay taxes. So back in the spring, we entered into an agreement. The school district entered into that same agreement. But I don't think the county was paying attention to what was going on. They're asking that their revenue number be revised. So the solicitor's office reached out late last week and asked if council could approve this revision. The revision does not change the terms that we have agreed to. All it does is it changes and recognizes the revenue increase that the county will receive as part of this. So it's just sort of a formality for us. But the solicitor's office is asking that we put this up for discussion in a vote.
Questions, comments, discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item. Okay. Moving to roads, equipments, and grounds. A few years ago, this process takes a while to make it through. I think back in 2022, the borough had applied for a Green Light Go grant. Green Light Go grant is funded by the state of Pennsylvania and can be used for our new council people for a number of things. And in our case, what we're looking at here are traffic signals. So all of our traffic signals are located on state roads, yet we are the permit holder for those lights. So we are responsible, unfortunately, to build the lights, maintain the lights forever. There are two projects that we wanted to address, and through the Green Light Go grants, we received approximately $307,000 for two projects. So the two projects are one, located at back to East Oakmont, the intersection of Halton Road and Coxcomb Hill Road, right by the Sheets. There's a pedestrian island there. You can see on the screen the intersection right there. The pedestrian island, on average, and I'm not kidding, gets hit 3 and 4 times a year by vehicles, and we're constantly trying to chase down who hit those vehicles and getting them replaced. Finally, we approached PennDOT about trying to alter our permit to get rid of that island and relocate some of the pedestrian cross signs, to the sides of the road. So as part of this, they have agreed to that, and we are moving forward with that project. I do want to say, we do have the U.S. Open coming up in the spring, and we've talked with Oakmont Country Club and the USGA about this project and about our we are hoping to have this done early in 2025. I do want to give PennDOT credit. I know that doesn't happen a lot, but we did approach PennDOT about this issue with the U.S. Open and asked them to move their reviews forward as quickly as possible, and they've done that. So I want to give them credit where credit's due. It's refreshing to work with PennDOT and have them help us. But the second project involved in this agenda item is if you go further up the road on Coxcomb to the intersection of Ramparts Boulevard, and I think you can see that picture here. The light system there is out of date, out of code, and the entire system is going to be replaced. Controller boxes, lights, mast arms. We put that project out to bid, so we are required new council people. Anything over, I think, $25,000 needs to be bid out, and we did do a formal bid with our traffic engineer. We did open those bids last week, and those bids came in at approximately $456,000 for those two projects. So we had the grant money of $307,000, and then in our 2024 budget, we'd also anticipated a local contribution of $108,000. So even with that, we do have a shortage of money being able to fund this project. I talked with Mike Whitaco, our finance director. We looked at some of the projects that we had budgeted for 2024, some capital projects. One of those projects is the Barnes Road improvement, which we're actually waiting on another grant to be able to fund that. So the Barnes Road improvement's not going to happen this year.
Staff's recommendation is we slide that money from Barnes Road over into this project, making sure that we have the money to award this contract. I did receive, dated August 29th, a letter from our traffic engineer saying that he's reviewed the bids, there are no irregularities, and he recommends that we award the contract at the next meeting.
Discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item. Next item is demolition of 4575 New Texas Road. So that is for new council people, our old borough building, 4575 New Texas. We have been moved out of there for, how long, guys? Almost 2 years? It's hard to believe. But we did bid this out. We do have a grant. We received a local services grant from the state to help fund this. So the bids are not opened until tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. So we will open those bids and we will send a memo to you to update you on what the prices were. KU Resources is running this for us, and they had 13 contractors secure the bid specs. So I'm hoping we have 13 competitive bids to open tomorrow and we get a good price on that. Okay, so that'll be part of the agenda packet before we approve it? Correct, so we're just asking that it be put on the agenda for consideration at next week's meeting. Any discussion or questions?
I just have a question. Is there a date that it has to be demolished by in the bid?
I don't think so. There's probably a number of days when we give them notice to proceed. Mr. Maital, 90 days, 120 days, it's,
I don't know what exactly it says in there, but typically they're given a number of days, 90 or 120, whatever seems reasonable for them to accomplish it from the time of award.
So usually the things that would hold up an award or this project starting for demolition is in a commercial building is asbestos. So as part of our due diligence, we did an asbestos study. The asbestos areas were identified and remediated. So that's one less thing that has to happen here. Speaking with KU Resources, we're hoping to get this building down, by the end of the calendar year. Now, once the bid is awarded, we'd have pre-construction meeting, safety meeting with police. As far as actual demolition, it's probably a few weeks worth of work.
I just wanted to know if it was going to be next year or this year.
Yeah, we'd like it not to drag on. Yeah.
How about the flagpoles? Are we gonna...
So all I can say right now for the flagpoles is, as part of our contract, we own the flagpoles, and the flagpoles will be set aside for us to address at a later date.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or comments? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
Yep. So the last two, I'm going to bring DJ back to the microphone. We're going to talk about Public Works project, Blue Ridge to Tivoli. This is a project that our engineers had identified a few years ago as far as a storm sewer improvement. It does appear in our 2024 budget. And we're asking, and DJ will explain the project to you, but just asking that you authorize the advertisement of this for bids.
And in short, there's a corrugated metal pipe that's acting as a storm sewer between these two streets, and the project's going to replace it with modern corrugated plastic pipe. The corrugated metal deteriorates over time and is causing problems for the area, so this project's supposed to alleviate that issue. And again, staff recommends that the council approve advertisement for bids.
So the only real quirk to this project is that this property owner has come before the borough and has received two permits, one for an above-ground pool and one for a shed. The surveys submitted with those permit applications show that both of those items would be built outside of our easement. As part of preparing for this project, KU obviously had to do some survey work and has found that both of those items are in our easement. So we'll be asking the solicitor's office to send a letter to the property owner asking them to remove those items from our easement for construction purposes.
So the cost associated with moving them would be on the homeowner.
That is correct.
Since we have the permits issued correctly, and they were supposed to be on his property, not on our easement.
Correct, and this easement, was probably given to the borough when that part of Holiday Park was developed. So we own the easement, and, we have exclusive rights to that easement. I'm sure that easement appears on their property survey. We run into this here, a few times. Well, I wouldn't say a few times a year, once every other year. But certainly, the easement's there for a purpose. It's to protect our storm sewer and allow us to maintain that storm sewer as needed.
Sounds like it's gonna be a good one. Any further discussion?
How many foot is our right-of-way, Dave?
Well, the right-of-way is never big enough, or the easement's never big enough. When you look back at some of these Holiday Park plans, they give you an easement of 15 feet. 7.5 feet on, if you have, typically easements straddle two properties. That's not the case here. I think it goes right down. So 15 is probably the listed easement. And DJ could probably talk to you about what an implied easement is, and our ability to have to get in there to make repairs.
Yeah, on a generic interpretation, an implied easement is if you would say have your driveway over the neighbor's property and you used it, that could be determined as an implied easement, that they knew it was there, they saw it, and they saw you using it, and you were using it that way. In this case, yeah, having a storm sewer there, knowing it's there, that would imply that there was an easement there to go with it, so that you'd have the right to do your maintenance and replace it. So
it's going to be a good one. Any further discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
So last item under roads, equipment, and grounds is request to have council authorize the advertisement to amend our existing construction standards ordinance, which was adopted in 2018. And Jess, I think you're going to scroll through what that looks like. So it's all, I don't think that's our ordinance there. But DJ, you want to explain, what these standards are and why we use them and who uses them?
Sure, they're essentially the standard construction details that basically Public Works tries to follow, and then also all the developments that come into the town. Essentially, as you'll see on the bottom, the big Plum Boro logo, one of the changes from the prior version, it had the consultant's logo on there as well as Plum's. Some of the consultants for the applicants complained that they didn't want a contradictory logo on their plan set. So that was one of the minor changes. Some terminology changes in the details, but basically it also included sorting them, so paving details, roadway details were all together, parking lot related details, striping materials were all together, and then as it gets back to the rear of the section, inlets, manholes, structures, things like that are all together. We also did do a minor update to the particular casting for the manholes and the grates for the inlets, making sure that they're using current PennDOT RC standards. And then of course there's the typical notation, everything's supposed to be in accordance with PennDOT 408 to make sure the materials and construction methods are all up to code. We also removed a couple redundancies. Since these are the standard details, as an example, there was standard manhole details, and then for the same size pipe, there was a potential alternate detail that Plum would be okay with. We've eliminated the alternates with the concept that if they want to use an alternate, they can request a waiver or modification to do so. That was really about it.
Manholes is another word for man-made potholes.
Yeah, and I think California, they call them access ports. They're not allowed to call them manholes anymore. So
well, they're potholes as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion, comments, or discussion? Okay, that'll be an agenda item. That brings us to the end of the posted agenda. Anyone have anything further for council business? I'll ask for an adjournment. I have an adjournment by Mr. Majernik, and I have a second by Mr. Taylor. All those in favor? We are adjourned.